and others. And I think this is proof positive that the Israeli leadership is very vulnerable and on the run. That they can take nothing for granted. And the destruction that's being handed down on Israel is mind-boggling. Nobody with the people who knew anticipated this happening. The people that knew, a guy that deserves the gold medal for, accuracy is Mohammad Marandi. He's the Iranian professor who told us all exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and it's just been going the way that he said. That's it. Anyways, that's my way of saying that I don't know what's going on with Benjamin Netanyahu.
I'll also tell people too that they would just replace Benjamin Netanyahu with someone very similar or possibly worse than Benjamin Netanyahu. So I want people to understand that as well. Ron not giving up.
Well, let me just add to that, though. See, the reason why I think that say he is, okay, now you're forcing me to answer the question. Darn you, Savvy. I think he's either dead or severely injured. Why wouldn't they say that? Because it's not that they're going to replace him. His coalition is hanging on by a thread. This war was a war of deception of not just of the United States, but also of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is not the most popular leader in Israel. People need to remember before all of this started, before October 7th, you had hundreds of thousands of Israelis in the street marching, demanding he be removed from office because he was trying to change the laws of Israel so that he couldn't be held accountable for the corruption. And Israelis were saying, no, you don't get to change the foundational element of Israeli law, well, they don't have a constitution, how the court system works, et cetera. You don't get to appoint judges so that they don't put you in jail. And yet that's what he was doing. He's a corrupt individual. He's a fundamentally corrupt individual, one of the most corrupt people out there. And yet some people say he cooked the books on October 7th to stay in power. That, how do you not know this was happening? Why are your response times so slow? But it was necessary to create an emergency to say, you need me, the security man. I'm the security guy. We now have a security crisis. Forget about all that judge stuff. Now it's security. And then Hamas beat the crap out of him. Peter Scott, Gaza got fought. Israel's supposed to be this most powerful military in the world. And they didn't beat Hamas. Hamas is still there. You guys do know that, right? Hamas is still there. They're still under the ground. They can fight if they want to. Israel didn't beat them. Israel just committed genocide, which is what Israel does. So what did this guy do? He then expanded the war into Lebanon. And now you need me. See, yes, Gaza's a mess. It's a disaster. Hamas, we can't be, but now you need me to defeat Hezbollah. So he moves into that phase. Then you need him to defeat Syria and all this, and everything's looking good, but then it stopped looking good. And so he took it to the last step he could take it, Iran. This is a war about Netanyahu's political viability, but not him, just his little tiny little coalition of the right-wing Nazis. Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and others. If Netanyahu's dead or wounded, this coalition falls apart. And that's the end of Greater Israel. That's the end of this whole Greater Israel experiment. And so the people in power right now can't tell the truth about what's happening to Netanyahu. Because if he's dead, their coalition will collapse. There's a whole bunch of moderates out there, conservatives, who despise Benjamin Netanyahu, who will make a move to fill the gap. There's no Israeli politician with the resume of Netanyahu, with the charisma of Netanyahu within Israel. He's a man who has, basically, hypnotized the United States. I mean, how else do you explain all those standing ovations in Congress to a man who's a mass murderer? But I think that that this isn't about him being replaced by somebody worse than him. This is about his coalition collapsing. This is about the people who are in power refusing to yield power, and because they're now in the fight of their life right now with Iran. They gambled and they have lost, and so I think there's just a lot of stuff happening inside Israel right now that isn't for the good. Because if Netanyahu's dead, you get a collapse in confidence of the government at a time when Israel is showing that that life is unsustainable in Israel. And what happens when Israelis start fleeing? When they start emptying the homeland, when they start returning to where they came from, that's the end of Israel. And so I think there's something going on here. I can't say exactly what, but there's something going on here that's about sustaining the notion that Netanyahu continues to be a viable political leader, because that is absolutely essential for the greater Israeli project. And it's essential not just for Israel, but for the United States. We're the ones who brought the Abrams Accords into being. We're the ones that convinced the Gulf Arab states to get on the knee and surrender to this notion of greater Israel. And that whole concept is falling apart. Donald Trump, again, he's literally in a state of panic right now. You can see it in his tweets. I'm not a shrink. I didn't spend the time in college to learn how to be a psychoanalyst, but I'm pretty good at reading words, and I'm pretty good at ascertaining intent. And when you take a look at the content of the social posts that he's been putting out, this is a man who's 100% in a panic. He is panicked because nothing's going right. Everything's going wrong. And he's looking at the entire Trump legacy collapsing. He's desperate for a solution. But what happens if Netanyahu dies? He knows what happens. The whole house of cards comes collapsing down. And it could be the end. Go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I was just going to say something about what the Iranian foreign minister said, but go ahead.
It could be the end of Christian Zionism and their hold on power here in the United States. If we're looking at the death, the end of Netanyahu, the collapse of this political machine. Netanyahu's been the head of this AIPAC-driven machine that's bought Congress, bought everybody. He dies. This machine's discredited. You have people like Tucker Carlson. Take a look at the panic people have about Tucker Carlson and others standing up now, Candace Owens and others calling out Israel and all this. There's absolute panic on the other side. We could be seeing the end of the Zionist hold on the United States. So these videos are more than just an odd curiosity. I think they might be reflective of something much more fundamental. But I come back to what I said. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, to give you guys an idea of also what's going on, Iranian foreign minister was actually on Face the Nation Sunday morning. Listen to what he said here.
That may be your position, but sir, this is a war of survival for your government. Minister, don't you have to negotiate and reach out either directly or through a third party?
No, it's not a war of survival. We are stable and strong enough. We are only defending our people from this act of aggression, and we don't see any reason why we should talk with Americans, because we were talking with them when they decided to attack us, and that was for the second time. There is no good experience talking with Americans. We were talking, so why they decided to attack us? So what is good if we go back to talk once again?
Well, I want to come back to that in just a moment. You're referring to the diplomacy with President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his envoy, Steve Witkoff. But just to continue on this, Iran is sending its drones and its missiles into your neighboring countries, American allies throughout the Gulf. Before the war, your government traded with them. You had relations with them. If your government survives this conflict, how do you go back to doing business with countries you're sending drones into and hitting civilian targets?
It's so interesting that she tries to, I want to get your Scott here as well. She tries to put it back on him and saying like you're hitting civilian targets. That's not the case. It's not what I've seen. I can show you some of the recent ones that have happened as well. But he made it very clear, like, why should we sit back and have to negotiate? Look at what happens in other times when they said, let's get to the negotiation table. They attack us.
No, I mean, again, in the United States, I mean, she lives. I don't know her name. I apologize. I should have enough respect for her as a journalist to know her name. But she's not prepared, and she is literally she is the worst in American journalism, because there's no sense of perspective here, and there's no understanding of the situation. Iran was a surprise attack. It was a surprise attack. A surprise attack. What was the United States' approach to Imperial Japan after Pearl Harbor? Let's negotiate or unconditional surrender? Unconditional surrender. Because they started this. They bombed us. Iran was in the midst of a very detailed negotiation where Iran actually made significant compromises. If people took the time to read what the Omani government had moderated, the deal that was being brought to the United States, there was an Omani representative on an airplane flying to the United States with a completed treaty text, ready to sit down with American counterparts and sign on it, which would have ended any concern at all about the Iranian nuclear program. But then we attacked because we were never serious about diplomacy. Diplomacy is always a false, it's a false, it's called perfidy. It's a war crime, by the way. It's, people don't care anymore. We use that term war crime so often, they're just tired of it. But it's a serious war crime to hide behind a white flag of truce and then attack. But this second time we did it. It's not the first time. It's the second time we did it. We did it last June, too. The Iranians aren't going to negotiate. To negotiate is to do what? To negotiate gives Israel and the United States a chance to hit the pause button on one of the greatest mistakes they've ever made in modern history. They're losing this war. Iran's winning this war. So why would Iran want to negotiate a ceasefire? Hit pause and allow Israel and the United States to do what? Regroup, deploy new radars to replace the radars that were destroyed, maybe run 6 months worth of rapid production to get the missile interceptors up. Repair your airplanes. I keep bringing that up because I know a little bit about aircraft maintenance, and I'm telling you, you can't maintain these sortie rates forever. Things are starting to break. Things are starting to get worn down. Pilots are starting to get tired. Mistakes are starting to be made. Sometimes mistakes are made in terms of two KC-135s just running into each other in the same airspace over Western Iraq. This happens when you start to make mistakes. So, we're seeing mistakes made. Iran's winning, so why would they negotiate? Negotiate what? No, it's just such a fundamentally stupid question. Totally, reflective of the fact that the American media doesn't understand it. And she brings up the Arab state, as if these Arab states, Iran hasn't struck a Gulf Arab state that didn't provide a base for the Americans to launch attacks against Iran. Every single nation struck plays host to significant American military installations and intelligence installations that are used to support directly or indirectly the ongoing conflict against Iran. They are parties to the conflict, literally parties to the conflict. And Iran has every right to attack them. As Iran expands into other target sets, understand that it does so only after for instance, the main Iranian banking building was struck in downtown Tehran. Banking building. Because we say we have to destroy Iran's ability to bank, as if that's a war objective. Then Iran turns around, strikes banks in Bahrain and in Dubai, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, you struck a civilian!" The Iranians are like, "No, if we can't bank, you can't bank." The Israelis blew the hell out of oil storage outside of Tehran, blew it to smithereens. Fires in the street as the oil seeped into the sewage systems. I mean, it was just a little hell on earth. Iran said, okay, they blew up oil tanks as well. Desalinization plant. Iran struck a desalinization plant. This is tit for tat. Iran doesn't initiate any of these actions, but what Iran is not doing is targeting civilians.
Right.
We know that by the low level of casualties here. If Iran wanted to kill people, there's ways to kill people. Look what they're doing to Israel. They're not killing Jews. I mean, yes, there's a handful of Israelis that have died. Iran suffered over 2,000 dead so far because the Israelis and the Americans are in the business of killing civilians. We don't need to get into the bombing of the school on day one to prove that point. The Iranians are running one of the most carefully tailored, precision air campaigns ever. Every target struck has a legitimate military or economic purpose. They're designed to put pressure on both the United States, on Israel, and the Gulf Arab states. And look at the result. She said, what's going to happen at the war? Well, what's going to happen when the war ends? There won't be any American troops in the Middle East, because all the Gulf Arab nations are coming together right now saying, no, we're done. We need America out of here. You're the problem, not the solution. And they will all make peace with Iran because they all know inside they're to blame. They gave safe haven to a nation that abused that trust by striking in cowardly fashion Iran. And now Iran is striking back, and there will be a price to pay. But Iran has done this responsibly. We're going to see a jump in. I mean, I don't know what gasoline prices are where you are, but in 1 week, mine went from $3.11 to $3.53 at the pump, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Even if they stop today, there's going to be pain because look at Australia. They're running out of everything. And even if they freed up the Strait of Hormuz, shipments wouldn't get to Australia for weeks. They're running out of stuff in days. And no matter what happens, the cavalry can't arrive for weeks if they arrive at all. So Australia's just going to go through an absolute nightmare. Europe's going to go through that as well. This is Iran playing that card, just like Mohammed Mirande warned they would. But they haven't completed it. If we want to escalate further, as some people are asking the president to do, strike, for instance, the oil facility at Karg Island that where 80-90% of Iran's oil is loaded onto tankers at that place, they will shut down energy production forever in the Middle East. Please go and study oil fields, study maintaining pressure, study water, study the whole thing. Oil fields isn't about drilling a hole in the ground and pumping stuff out. There is a complicated way of maintaining an oil field as you do all this, and it has to be done very carefully. You have to have patience. You can't just turn it on and off switch. Things have to be drawn down slowly. That's what Kuwait's doing right now, drawing it down slowly. And once they do that, then they don't just turn the on switch on. Then you have to bring it up slowly, and it takes time. The entire Middle East is going to shut off, hit the off switch. And then we're collectively screwed. Screwed big time. And this is the trump card that the Iranians have, because not only are they not running out of missiles, and ladies and gentlemen, they won't run out of missiles. They've been planning this for a long time.
I was going to say thank you for saying that, because Pete Hegseth just had that speech a couple days ago where he said they don't have anything left. They 90% of their weapons have been used. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's lying through his teeth. And so many people are buying it. Like if they only watch corporate media, a lot of people are believing that. I'm like, are you kidding me? How do they use 90%? They were actually like hitting Israel as he was saying that. So thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, it's almost like, Pete Hegseth is just a running Saturday Night Live, opening segment. Everything he says is parody because it's so ridiculous, so over the top, so fundamentally ignorant and stupid. But is there no shame? We have 90 to 95% of their launch capability is gone. We have degraded them. At one point in time, they came out and they said there's fewer than 12 launchers left. I think the next day the Iranians launched 40 missiles. I'm like, that's at least 40 launchers. I'm not sure. I'm just a Marine. I'm not the greatest at math, but if you're launching 40 missiles, you got more than 12 launchers. And then Hegseth says that night Israel got hit with one of the largest missile barrages ever. What this proves is we don't know what we're doing. We don't know our enemy. We don't know anything about the Iranians. I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are blowing up empty buildings. That's it. And then we get pissed, excuse my language. And then we start blowing up buildings that aren't empty, but should not be struck because of the laws of war. We get frustrated, so we start striking civilian targets, purely civilian targets. And we're committing war crimes. Again, the school is proof positive that we are capable of committing the most outrageous war crimes. I'm telling you right now that we're doing it today because we are in a panic. We have people who believe that to achieve your results, you just have to drop more bombs. It's a simple mathematical. Guys, I've been doing this a really, really long time. I hate to give away my age here, but I remember the Gulf War, Desert Storm, and I remember General Schwarzkopf setting certain criteria for, reducing enemy capability before we would start the ground war. And I remember people like me pissing him off because he's like, well, we need to bring it down to this level. And I'm saying, well, you might want to hit some targets then because they're up here. We're not doing what you think. Well, we flew B-52 missions last night. We had to have killed something. Gosh, I don't know how to tell you this, General, but when you take off from Diego Garcia and you start flying in towards Kuwait, at some point in time on the map, there's a shift in the grids because, the world isn't flat, it's round. And so there's an adjustment made. And the B-52s failed to make the adjustment. They were going off of map flying and they flew right in. And if you look at the photograph, here's the Iraqi defensive positions. And over here's the B-52 bombs. They bombed the desert. They didn't hit anything. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. The Air Force was so afraid that they were losing control of the narrative because they were out there saying air power wins, air power wins, air power wins, that they convinced Schwarzkopf that rather than rely on people like me to look at photographs and say what's dead and what's not dead, we'll just use a simple mathematical formula. For X amount of bombs dropped, we achieve Y amount of damage automatically. Automatically. So all we have to do is drop more bombs and we will tell ourselves we're doing it. And so next thing you know, green, 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 and the ground invasion starts. Fortunately, our ground troops are really, really good. And it didn't matter that the Iraqis hadn't been prepped the way they were. We rolled through them like a hot knife through butter. But it was based on a lie. I remember when the war ended, one of the things that I did, I went out there. There was a famous engagement of 23 Easton or 53 Easton, I can't remember, 73 Easton, maybe 73 Easton, where the Talcana division fought an American, I think 1st Cab, 24th Mech, I don't know. But they fought the U.S. and it was a one-sided victory. We blew up a lot of stuff on the ground. We won. So, but the Air Force was saying that they achieved that because they were killing stuff. So while the war was still fresh, and I'm talking about while tanks are still warm or hot because they're burning, while bodies are still in the armored vehicles, I wanted to go out and I wanted to grid out the battlefield and then do a grid by grid assessment of all the destroyed equipment and determine when it was destroyed, what destroyed it, how it was destroyed, etc., and then get a fundamental final understanding of how we destroy things on the battlefield. The Army was all happy with that. They're like, yeah, we're good. The Air Force was so scared. This is no kidding. I came back from the initial part of this work and I was greeted by two armed men. And they said, Ritter, get on the next airplane out of here. You're done. They don't want the truth. They don't want the truth at all. So that's how I got to go home early in the Gulf War. The war was over, but people hung out there for a couple of weeks doing stuff. They physically put me on an airplane to get me out of there because they didn't want the truth told about the fact that air power doesn't do what we claim it does. It never does because it's all about targeting. It's about intelligence. It's about so much more than simply a sexy plane dropping a sexy weapon. We can have pinpoint accuracy, but if we don't know what we're hitting, it doesn't matter. And that's what's going on right now. That's why I talked about that B-52 with all the AGM-86s. They're going to cycle off 10 multi-million-dollar missiles. They're going to hit empty buildings so that somebody somewhere can tell Pete Hegseth, we've taken them down to, we've killed 92% now because we fired 10 cruise missiles and they don't miss their target, Pete. They don't miss. They're lethal. They're really lethal. They're rolling in lethal. Lethal. That's one of his favorite words, lethality. You're killing a lot of concrete, Pete. God bless you, man. But you're not doing anything to the way the Iranians are designed to fight this war. I'm not saying we're not, that it's not that we aren't achieving some. I'm sure the Iranians are taking losses, but they have prepared for this fight. And they are experts in deception. They are experts in decoys. And they know how stupid we are. They've been watching it, just again, for all the mouth breathers out there, all you oxygen thieves who sit there and America's the greatest thing in the world. Wow. They've been watching us fight for 2 decades. Just look at a map. Iraq is right next door to Iran. Look at Afghanistan. Yep. Same thing. They've been watching everything, and they have some of the best intelligence collectors in the world. And they collect everything, our communications. They collect our equipment. They collect they study our doctrine. They've got it all down. And so they know how we operate. They know what our prejudices are in terms, military, they know that we're like kittens in a laser beam. You know what happens when you put a laser beam in a room with a kitten? You shine the laser beam on the wall. And so they're sitting there going, how do we get America to do what we want them to do? Shine the laser beam over here. And off we go. And they have sat there and deliberately created a visual image for us to collect so that we think this is reality. And we're dropping bombs on that reality. All we're doing is chasing the laser beam, guys. We're a bunch of stupid little cats chasing laser beams around the room while the Iranians are doing the real thing. And the proof is, look at the results. They're launching missiles. We ain't stopping the missiles. The other thing is, look how smart they are, where these missiles are hitting. This isn't panic launch. This isn't people saying, oh my God, okay, we've got American aircraft overhead. Okay, we got a 5-minute window. Go, 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 go. Sir, we haven't time. No, just shoot the missile, shoot the missile. We need a propaganda say, shoot the missile. We just need again, hide. No. This is, we need to have the missiles hit on this time. All right, let's start rolling them out. Okay, let's get them launched in sequence. Boom, 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 boom. No panic. Move back. Missiles come in, hit the targets they need to hit when they need to hit them. If you think for a second, let's say Benjamin Netanyahu's dead. Has anybody thought through the ramifications of that? Because the Israelis are some of the most security-oriented people I've ever met. I worked very closely with Israeli intelligence for 4 years inside Israel. And I've been to a lot of the places that are getting blown up right now. The Israelis are very security conscious.
Scott, I think you froze there.
Israelis are very security conscious, and they jam our signals. But the point is, Netanyahu just doesn't show up at a meeting. They don't put it on the internet. This morning at 8:30 a.m., Netanyahu is going to show up at 24 Nitzavim Street to have his cabinet meeting in the underground bunker. They have several places identified. They pick one at the last minute. People come in secrecy. And the Iranians hid it. Well, how did they get that information? And how did they get it in that timely fashion? And not only that, then how did they pick the right weapon to come in and hit that target with the right effect? Do you guys understand how skillful that is? What it means? I do, because that's what I used to do. I mean, my job was to collect intelligence, find a place on the ground, pick a weapon system, assign it to a platform, get that weapon on the target within the time frame necessary. Very hard to do. The Iranians are doing it. And that speaks volumes right there. That speaks volumes. The Israelis were able to kill Ali Khamenei on day one because he sat in his home. Because he was 86, 88 years old, cancer, wanted to die. Since that time, they're not killing people. I mean, they're killing some, but they're not killing the people they claim to be killing. The Iranian government's functioning. Hell, it was walking the streets the other day. Did you see that? He's just walking the streets of Tehran. He's got some security, but he's just walking the streets. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Yep. Hey, showing the face. People need to dissect a little bit more carefully just what it is. If you're going to sit there and say Benjamin Netanyahu's dead, then you have to talk about how did that happen? Because it wasn't luck. It was skill. That means the Iranians know what they're doing. They're inside our decision-making cycle, the Israeli decision-making cycle, and they're driving this boat. Everything we're doing is a reaction to the Iranians. The Iranians aren't reacting to us at all. The Iranians are being proactive. They're driving the operational tempo. We're reacting.
Well, I want to show people some of recently in Israel, just to show people some of the damage. And the people are protesting in Israel as well. Just to give you guys an example, here's one here. I'll mute it because of the music. But just to let you guys see, because corporate media, they're not showing people what's happening in Israel like this. Here's another one. As you can see, the protests have already started. People protesting here. That's one of them there. There's a number of these that have been happening because people are just, here's another one, absolute chaos in Tel Aviv. Israeli society is living through one of the worst moments in decades. So again, what corporate media isn't telling you. Yeah, as you guys can see, the people are, I guess they've had enough. And I want to go into this part here about what's happening in the Gulf states. So there was a drone strike in the UAE that hit another one of these oil hubs. Dropsite News has been covering this very heavily. You guys can see here. And meanwhile, Pete Hegseth is telling you they have nothing left. People need to see like what is happening. So the UAE there, another one here is an alarm in Iraq where they are telling American citizens to get out now.
Some breaking news considering the situation in the Middle East. We're hearing from the United States that all US citizens should leave Iraq immediately. That warning coming in the last few moments. So you'll remember we told you that Iraqi security officials have said a missile struck the US embassy compound in Baghdad, reportedly hitting a helipad. A fire, as you can see, being set on the roof of the embassy. Well, now we're being told all US personnel and citizens must leave Iraq. Iran and Iraq-aligned terrorist militia groups pose a significant threat to public safety in Iraq. The state.
So you guys can see what's happening there. And then I want to get your opinion about this as well, Scott. Citibank was hit in Dubai.
भागो पीछे तो पीछे बहुत तगड़ा ही धमाका हुआ है यहाँ बहरीन में.
Yeah, they went after the banks. They went after, other like infrastructure here. And then I want to get your take on this, Scott. Donald Trump, shout out to Gen X girl because she's doing the damn thing. After declaring victory over Iran, Trump is asking allies for help. So he's asking allies to send warships to break Iran's hold on the Strait of Hormuz, to break that blockade. This is not going well for Donald Trump at all. I want to get your take on this, Scott, because again, like I said, corporate media is not showing people a lot of things that I just showed them there.
Let's just, again, parse out a couple of things. The evacuation of U.S. citizens from Baghdad, from Iraq. The Green Zone, which is the former, presidential palace area for Saddam Hussein that was taken over by the United States. We took over his palaces. We converted them into our embassy, into other, so it's sort of a city within a city. Has for some time now, the United States has been publishing videos that show the Green Zone has this system, the Sea Whiz or whatever. It's a Gatling gun system on top of the building, and as a drone comes in, its radar picks it up and shoots it down and all that. And look, we're America. You'll never get us, you inferior, useless ragheads. They didn't hit a helicopter pad. They hit the radar of the Sea Whiz. The Sea Whiz is dead. Doesn't work. So the big, wonderful weapon system that makes America better than anybody else in the world, and don't you mess with us because we're going to shoot you down, it's dead. And now that it's dead, it's fair game for everything in that compound. That's why they're leaving, because the Iranians and their Iraqi allies do this better than we do it. They know us better than we do, know them, and they're winning. The oil infrastructure, again, these Arab monarchies, the Gulf Arab states, are almost totally dependent upon their ability to sell energy. And they're not selling energy right now. The United States is out there bombing Iranian energy targets. Iran is responding. There's panic right now, absolute panic throughout all of these monarchies, because they stay in power because of the wealth. They're extraordinarily wealthy. Then they find a way to hire thugs. The United Arab Emirates. I mean, I no offense. I mean, I've been there. I've been to Abu Dhabi. I've been to Dubai. I've met with the Crown Prince, and I've met with all these people. And they built something cool. But if you put enough money, Las Vegas is pretty cool. Otherwise Las Vegas is just this ridiculous piece of desert in the middle of nowhere in Nevada. But we put enough money into it and enough water that you've built this neon edifice that as long as you ignore the corruption and the prostitution and all the other stuff, it could look like it's cool. Dubai and Abu Dhabi, it's the same thing. It's all flash, all money. It's all fake. Underneath it, there's tremendous amount of decadence and depravity. There's supposed to be a moral, Muslim world, very moral. The prostitution in Dubai and Abu Dhabi is unreal. It's just the reality of it. So, they live on a facade of fooling people into believing that they're all powerful. The royal family is strong and noble, and they show them marching forward with falcons on their arms, and they're great. When this is done, Dubai is going to be a ghost town, because what makes Dubai work is the international money that comes in, the banking money that comes in, the notion that expatriates can live in peace and wealth and money flows and all that. No, the Iranians have just shown that to be a lie. And the UAE government's in a total panic right now. They're starting to consolidate. They're in such a panic. They've been out there challenging Saudi Arabia for some time now. It's always funny to watch these elite Arab nations fight each other. And they faced off in Sudan. You may remember that Sudan's got a big problem. The RSF's taken on the former Sudanese army, huge war crimes, massive displacement of people and all that. And the UAE was sort of backing the RSF. But the UAE is withdrawing from Sudan right now because they have to come home because they're in a panic. 85% of the UAE's military are mercenaries, primarily Pakistanis. What happens when you can't pay them anymore? Mercenaries only as good until the money's going jingle, jingle in their pocket. Then what happens when the mercenaries start to view you as the problem? And there's a lot of panic right now in the UAE. They're looking at this, this quasi paradise that they've constructed dissolve before their very eyes because of Iran. Iran's exposed the weaknesses, the frailties. The same thing with Qatar. I mean, you hear people in the United States criticize Qatar. They support the Muslim Brotherhood and all this stuff. Well, they do all what they do because of money. They got a lot of money. They get money by selling liquid natural gas. They're not liquefying natural gas right now. They shut down that process. Nothing's getting shipped out of there, which means no money's coming in. And eventually they're going to run out of money. And when they run out of money, again, the Qatari military is so wonderful. They're mercenaries. They're all mercenaries. And when they're not mercenaries, they're fat because Gulf Arabs don't like to work. Because they have too much money to work. They have so much money that why should they work? They hire the Pakistanis, they hire the Indians, the Bengalis, they hire the Filipinos, they hire the Thai, they hire everybody but them. Nations that do work, let me tell you the nations that do work. Iraq, they work. Those Arabs work. Iran, they're not Arabs, but they work. I mean, yes, look, everybody has migrant class, but the Iranians work. They get their hands dirty. They dig ditches. They do stuff. They build things. You don't find a Gulf Arab that's out there getting dirty. He'll sit there with his perfumed handkerchief and sniff the air and hire a British consultant to come in and manage this, make this work, make it happen, do this. Here's a lot of money, make it happen. And now that money's going away. And when it goes away, all those British consultants you hired, they go away too, because they weren't there because they like you. Nobody's in the Gulf because they like these fat Gulf Arab leaders. They're in the Gulf because these fat Gulf Arab leaders have a lot of money, and they're offering a lot of money to support these people. But no one's rallying around the just cause of the fat Gulf Arab leaders. And now all the fat Gulf Arab leaders are coming together saying, we ain't going to survive this if we're not careful. We need to address the root cause of the problem here. And the root cause of the problem is the United States. That's the amazing thing. They've come together and they've all acknowledged America's the problem here. You need to get out of here so that we can get back to selling oil and being able to buy off loyalty. But we're going to hit a point where even if the United States leaves, and we are going to leave, Sabby, we've lost. It's over. They might not be able to recover. And this could be the end. I find it ironic that everybody started this conflict looking for regime change in Iran. But when this war ends, it may be regime change every place else. Trump, he could lose the midterm election, and then he's history. Even if he's not impeached and convicted, he'll be impeached, which means paralysis. Israel, Netanyahu may be dead, but it doesn't matter because the Greater Israel Project is dead. East Board meeting, and it was all about the Greater Arab Project. If take a look at it, all the Gulf Arab states were there in Florida, at Donald Trump's little ego project, talking about how they're going to make peace in Gaza and do all this stuff. And each one of these people put $1 billion into it and all that. That probably was the last meeting of the Peace Board. Because first of all, it's hypocrisy. How can you have a peace board and turn around and go to war? But the Gulf Arab nations are what made the Peace Board work because they're the ones that put the money into it. And they're all sitting there going, we're done. So Donald Trump's little ego project is finished. This is the reality. Abrams Accords finished. The only nation that has a plan right now is Iran. Oh yeah, and it's two major allies, Russia and China. They all have plans. I always love when people go, well, where's Russia? I don't know, counting money in the bank right now and winning. Where's China? I don't know. Sitting there not doing a damn thing, watching 5 THAAD batteries leave South Korea. Have you guys even thought about that? China didn't have to do anything. Didn't move a finger, and they're winning because they picked the one inside. China and Russia sat down with the Iranians and said, if this thing happens, how do we see it unfolding? And then China and Russia's job was to help Iran up until the point of conflict, and then sit back and wait and let things happen. Trump had to lift the sanctions on Russian oil because he had no choice. If you don't get Russian oil on the market after Iran shuts down the Gulf, there's no oil and the prices go crazy. And the Russians didn't have to do anything. They just sat there and went, spasiba. And then, it's like, Putin sitting there going, empty wallet, full wallet. Ooh, full wallet. If you ever had one of those paydays, very rare in my life, but where you had a payday that was like larger than what you thought it was. And so you've paid off all your bills. And for the first time in your life, you're looking and you go, I got money, honey, we're going to dinner. We're going to a movie. We're going to buy something we always wanted to buy, and the Russians right now, they're going to balance their budget. They're going to get a cash infusion because there's a cash shortage. They're going to reduce inflation. They didn't have to do anything. So, there's a lot of winners in this war. None of them are called the United States and Israel or Europe.
Well, and that brings me up to this part. To sum it up, thought this was hilarious. Now they're pushing back on Trump. One of his advisors, David Sachs, who is another billionaire in Silicon Valley, he said that Israel could use nuclear weapon. So he is one of Donald Trump's top advisors, and he calls for the off-ramp to the Iran war because he said that Israel could be destroyed. All these people are starting to backpedal now. Another one here that I thought was interesting. Iranian lawmaker cites the UN charter in calling Ukraine legitimate target for helping Israel with drones. Now, this part to me is hilarious because how is Ukraine going to help Israel with drones when they're getting weapons from the United States? They can't even help themselves. So you guys see what's happening here, how other people are like kind of just putting their foot in it. And last but not least, I want to get your take about this, Scott. It has already been said, Ali Larijani said it first here earlier Sunday morning. I've heard that the remaining members of the Epstein network have devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to 9/11 and blame Iran for it. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people. Professor Morandi commented about this and said, I've been told that recently in a joint meeting between some extremist figures in the U.S. and Israeli regime intelligence services, a plan discussed to target a landmark tower in either an American city or in the UAE and then blame it on Iran. The goal would be to create international consensus for their subsequent actions and crimes. This looks like a very real possibility that intelligence is going to try to create some type of 9/11 style false flag, either in the United States or in one of the Gulf nations there. I want to get your take on that. And then also, how does Ukraine have drones to even send to Israel when they can't even help themselves at this point?
Well, the Ukrainians aren't sending drones to Israel. Ukraine is marketing anti-drone technology. These drone interceptors that they've developed with the assistance of the United States to counter the Shahed style drones. And so they've built a whole bunch of these things, and they're out there, they're deploying them. They don't work. I just want people to understand that they can shoot down some decoys. They can get this slower stuff. But what the Russians have done and what the Iranians have done as well is they've just built better Shahed 136 variants with jet engines. They fly faster. And by the time you launch your little interceptor, it's gone. And this is why everything's going boom inside Ukraine. Because Zelensky is just a giant grift, 100% grift. He tried to sell these things to Gulf Arab nations. Nobody's interested in it. The United States not interested, nothing. Politically, he's trying to market it to Israel. Nobody's buying it. It's not really helping. But what the Iranians were saying is this makes them a party to the conflict. Therefore, Iran could possibly launch missiles. I just think the Iranians understand that last night, the Russians launched just short shy of 50 advanced missiles, Zircon and Kinzhal missiles into Iran. Now, according to Zelensky, they shot them all down. They didn't shoot any of them down, and they all hit their targets, and everything went boom. And that's the reality. So Iran's not going to. What's Iran going to achieve by firing 5 missiles into Korea or into Ukraine and making other things go boom? Well, let Russia make things go boom there. You just keep making things go boom in Tel Aviv, and in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Kuwait City and Bahrain and Doha and the other places where America has bases and has interests. I went to the last question first. The first question was
about the false. Yes, the top false flag.
Yeah. False flags are psychological operations. It's mental war. It's it's designed to achieve a psychological impact to get people to buy into something they might not otherwise buy into. It's more difficult to pull off than you think. I'd like to believe that, I know, and I don't want to open this, but there's a lot of people saying that 9/11 was, a false flag and all this kind of stuff. In 2001, we didn't have what we have today in terms of an empowered social media, alternative media presence that literally picks everything apart. You're not going to get away with a false flag today because there's just too many smart people out there looking at things. There's a population that's become increasingly distrustful of the government, and there's too many people asking, who benefits from this? What? So I think that there might be some people in there talking about a false flag, but the idea of the United States government successfully pulling off a false flag today about Iran, I just don't think the population is going to buy it. Why would Iran? I mean, this is the fundamental question. Iran's winning. So why would Iran have to do an act of desperation designed to draw the United States deeper into this conflict? Iran's winning. They don't need to do anything else. They don't need to shift their plans. Their plans are working. And I just think there's enough people right now that are engaged. And also, again, we're seeing the self-destruction of this Zionist cabal that has hijacked and seized control of American mainstream media for so long and has sought to control the narrative. They're not in control anymore. They've lost control and they're panicking right now. They're starting to see fractures brought in because people are starting to ask the right questions about why America is doing what they're doing and on whose behalf is it? Is it America? Does it make America great or does it make Israel great? America first or Israel first? And these are entities that control how information is flowed to the American public, and their system is fracturing, crumbling. I don't think you can get away with a false flag today. I really don't.
Thanks to social media. Thank you to social media, and of course, independent media.
Thank you,
Scott.
Thank you to you, Sabby. This is where you need to say, the work that I do, you and others. This is why we've built. This is the importance of this alternative media. And I don't like the term alternative because it sort of gives the feeling that we're somehow subordinated to mainstream media. No, we're not alternative. We are independent media. We're not controlled by anybody. We ask questions that need to be asked. We pursue topics that otherwise wouldn't be pursued, and we help empower a broader audience with knowledge and information. So you are the vaccine. Oh God, shouldn't use a vaccine analogy, but you're the vaccine to the disease of ignorance that mainstream media puts on people. So people down there see all that stuff, Patreon and all that, support Sabby because she and other people like her create the possibility for us to make sure that false flags don't succeed because of the empowerment of you, the American viewer or global viewer, who no longer accepts at face value anything they're told by the mainstream media, is willing to ask questions, and Sabby's the kind of person that gives them answers to those questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy, so thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Have a great weekend.
You too.